In this episode, we talk terrible tenants, and we talk building problems. Building problem, like not getting planning permission. Does that count? Scrap it there. That's enough.
Stop! This is Aidan Rees-Heron, and you're watching Property Geek TV episode 27, 31, 33. Okay, it's reverse engineer what you want to achieve. So where do you want to get to? What do you want to achieve? Win-win on both sides, right? And that's what business should be. I'm here to provide value to you, so this is very, very serious, okay? Question of the day. Maybe? Nah.
This is Aidan Rees-Heron, and you're watching Property Geek TV episode 43. Feels like we're going through them quite quickly. We'll keep this one short because I want to do a triple whammy all in one day so that they're done for next week. Because I said to Leo, you're watching, yeah, we'll keep recording them ahead of schedule so that we never catch up, and then inevitably what happens is we always catch up because lazy, my bad. Try and fit in 3 today, if not we'll do a couple tomorrow, and then they're done and ready to go. And I'll show off my scars, well, my bruises.
Don't flatter yourself.
Don't flatter myself. Yeah, just working out. Sun's out, guns out. Right, we've got some more questions. Oh, not that one though, or that one. So quite exciting, got a few more to go. Please keep sending them in. We're going to do some more posts and things to try and get you to send your questions in or comment on here so that we can start getting some of your questions answered, and make them technical if you want, so that you can fluster me and get me confused that I don't know what I'm talking about. That's a challenge. Fluster me and confuse me. Josh, don't do anything. Right. So do you wanna hand of Josh? By the way, I'd really appreciate some of your feedback on whether you're finding these episodes useful or not. Do you like the format? We're cutting the questions and answers and publishing those on Facebook. Is that working for you guys? Let me know in the comments. Give me some feedback. Really appreciate it.
Cool. What's your favourite way to train staff?
My favourite way to train staff is, specifically outsourcers. One of the best ways to do that is through video. So a lot of the stuff we do, and Josh will attest to it, and a lot of stuff in business in general now is computer-based and process-orientated, and you do this, then you do that, then you do this. And it's much easier and much quicker for you to do it once, record it, and record your voice. Josh, you're really distracting eating those blueberries. I just caught Josh licking a blueberry. Don't even want to ask. One of the easiest things that you can do is record yourself doing the task, whatever it is. Speak over it, what you're doing exactly, and then do a small write-up of any extra information that you need. I don't know why you're laughing at me. Is it the blueberries? Any information that you think they might need to complete the task, and then send that all to them and ask them if they've got any questions. Then what I'd do is run the process a couple of times with clear breaks. So say, okay, do this twice, and then let me have a look at the work. Then do it another 5 times, let me have a look at your work. And then just gradually raise that bar of how much you just leave them to it. The reason to do that is to make sure that you don't release them and let them go wild and they completely waste their time doing something that's not important to you or your business. So check in, and then after a while then you've got KPIs and you've got metrics to keep to. So just keep checking back in those, and as long as you're meeting those metrics then you're good. Personally, my management style, me as an individual, I like to be self-sufficient, and so I like to leave people to be self-sufficient as well. So the task will be to do this, and then I don't really mind how you do it, as long as you do it to a good degree. And if the reality is, especially if you partner with people that know what they're talking about, they will probably figure out a better way of doing it than you would if you were in charge. It's slightly different when you're doing an optimization problem of like leveraging time out to other people. When you leverage time out to other people, you want to make sure it's processed and systemed and optimized. So that's what I say. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Videos, then text and images in that order probably. Cool. Hand of Josh, you're up. Time synchronization. Just checking.
Okay, I want to develop a house from scratch.
That's a long question.
It is. I want to develop a house from scratch. What extra elements will I need to include in my due diligence?
You want to develop a house from scratch. What extra elements do you need to do in your due diligence?
Yeah.
Is this a single house or a group of houses?
This says a house.
And what do they mean by scratch?
No, like, I suppose...
What should we mean by scratch? Like from land without planning? Okay, so something that you would need... So I'm going to presume, right? I'll make some presumptions and assumptions that when you mean from scratch, you mean you want to buy the land, get the planning permission, build the thing you got planning permission for, and then do something with that, whether you want to live in it or rent it or sell it, whatever it is. So that's what I presume you mean from scratch. Right. First, now we've spoken about due diligence quite a lot, so checking the area, knowing your figures, seeing what the construction costs will be, seeing what abnormalities you might have and accounting for that. What percentage do we have for abnormalities?
We had 5% contingency.
5% contingency for abnormalities.
So like a regular resi.
For a regular resi, right. So the one thing that you will need to check out on your due diligence is do some digging around on the area that you're looking to buy the plot of land to do the development on, to develop this house, this residential unit. Check around the area to see how likely you are to get planning. So what do I mean by that? If you're buying a piece of land that's in the middle and it's surrounded by residential units, the likelihood of getting planning is quite high, right? But if you're buying a plot of land in the middle of nowhere, then you need to check whether it's in a green belt. And if it's in a green belt, then it's probably going to be protected and there's restrictions, and then you're not going to get planning. And then doing all the other standard stuff like checking the site for whether it's got protected trees and great face. Whether it's got protected trees, seeing if you can determine whether there's any protected species that might be living in the area. Land surveys, water, underground piping surveys. That's a good one that we learned recently. So you can get a lot of this stuff like the underground piping surveys for like 15-20 quid. And then you can just spend a little bit of time looking at other planning applications in the area. The plot of land might have had a planning application on it previously, and then you can check whether it was granted. If it wasn't granted, why was it not granted? Just knowing the local area will help. Then other than that, if it's your first one, then you've got to find contractors. So do what you typically do. Go and speak to other people that are doing developments in the area, or properties, or agents. Ask them if they've got any recommendations. This is what I'd like to do. Do you know anyone that might be able to help me? Yes, we do. Here, talk to them, or talk to them, and then just follow the process through. But really what I'd say is account for the risk that you won't get planning.
Yeah, and also take into consideration extra fees for professional costs, QS,
yeah,
plan consultants, blah, blah.
Yeah. So like all of those costs that would come in all those costs would come in a typical development anyway.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they? Like even if you buy it with a building on site, if it's a development, you still have to have QS engineers. In fact, if there's a building there already, you need sound engineers, so there's extra costs. And you don't need a sound engineer as much when you're building from scratch. So the biggest risk, I guess, is going to be not having planning granted on the site. So doing some digging and checking whether you can get planning on the site, that would be key.
What's the best type of tenant?
One that pays their rent, mostly.
Doesn't trash your house.
Doesn't trash your house or your commercial property. So, okay, completely open slate. Personally, the best type of tenant, in my opinion, would be a commercial tenant, because a commercial tenant that has got a good, what's the word, covenant a good a good commercial tenant would be my preferred tenant. Reasons why. One, they are on a contract for several years rather than several months. Two, they are unlikely to trash your property because that property is what gives them income to their business.
Also, some commercial tenants actually cover the maintenance and stuff themselves.
Yeah, so some commercial tenants cover maintenance themselves. So, you know, you've got all of these things where they pay, and they typically pay higher fees than the bricks and mortar value because it's based on income, because they're a commercial tenant. So that's my immediate preference. Now, if we're talking about on a resi perspective, it's very difficult actually to say, you know, whether professionals are better than blue collars and whether blue collars are better than students and whether families are better than students or whether students are better than benefit tenants, and you know, because there's pros and cons to every single type of tenant, and I probably won't go into all of them because I don't know the ins and outs of every single one well enough because we don't manage stock for all of them, but I have some experience in some areas, so let me try and share that with you. Firstly, the one that most people will immediately say is the worst type of tenant is a benefit tenant. So someone that's on benefits. The reason that people say they're terrible tenants is because, well, they're on benefits, so they typically, without generalising, they typically will, well, they definitely don't have a job, but a lot of the times they're not interested in getting a job either because they're quite happy living on benefits and just being paid to do nothing all the time. A lot of benefit tenants, statistically speaking, have more alcohol problems, drug problems, relationship problems, violence problems, cleanliness problems than other types of tenants. But that doesn't mean that those other types of tenants don't have those issues. And in fact, I know some people that prefer their benefit tenants because at least they know what they're getting into with a benefit tenant than they do to some of their professional tenants. Because it seems to be like, with a professional tenant, they're professional because they have a job, right? If they don't have a job anymore, what do we call them? Unprofessional tenants? Ex-professional? They used to have a job, and sometimes that can snap people, and they go completely off the rails, don't pay their rent, they tend to know their rights a little bit better, so they won't move out, they can trash things. Typically, when they lose their job, that also means that their relationship breaks down, which can then result in violence and issues, and then, you know, maybe someone turns to drugs and out, like, it can go completely off the rails. So I guess what I'm trying to say is all of them have pros and cons. Now, one of the pros to benefit tenants, though, is that you can get the council to pay their rent directly to you as a landlord. Ka-ching! You can also specify, if you get in with the council, you can request certain types of tenants only into your property, which gives you a little bit more control over your tenants, which is great. Students, pro, pay more money. Cons, they tend to, statistically speaking again, trash properties. Also though, they are only in the property for 9 months a year. A lot of times they're getting savvy now, they don't want to pay rent when they're not in the property, or they want to pay half rent, so you have to weigh that up over the whole 12-month tenancy term. There's other things that you have to consider with student accommodation, so are you going to do a HMO or are you going to put it on a single AST? If you're putting it on a single AST, there's some different paperwork to when you put it on a HMO. If you put it on a single AST, there's benefits because it means that you can actually avoid putting locks on the doors because it's a single AST and they're bunking together, whereas if it's a HMO, they're technically all on separate ASTs, so they have to have locks and securities on their door. So there's a lot of information to go through, and really it's up to you to decide which tenant you think is best for you. But I would pick one or two and then focus on them, figure out how you can operate that tenant the best, and then try and bring in some staff, use some outsourcers, systemize the process, and then move on to another type of tenant. There's just too much information to like actually go. Okay, question of the day. What type of tenant do you think is the best type of tenant? Not really a question of the day. I'm genuinely interested in your scare stories. Like, try to scare me. Like, I asked you to try and get me to fluff up. Now I'm asking you to use some stories that you've got of terrible tenants and scare the bejeebers out of me and some other viewers. And we'll try and get over that.